historical inflection point. We've been spending the last, I don't know, 2 decades or so, 3 decades if you consider the end of the Cold War, through this sort of interesting historical period where there hasn't been any, I mean, there's been wars, but not to the scale that there were in the 20th century. I'd heard, one of these analysts say, yes, this whole situation is bad, but just bear in mind that, for centuries, Europeans were literally butchering each other. So if you're going to compare, it's not really kind of the same thing. But at the same time, there might be, this is like kind of a potentially some sort of spark to, whether it's rearranging things or just updating what the world looks like, how it operates, etc. Basically the Americans were, considered number one since the end of the Second World War, when they came out and sort of took control of things. And given, even just domestically what's happening in America in the last 10 years or so, and especially under the Trump years especially, could we be seeing, things rearranging a little bit in terms of, who's got the power or the dynamics across the world? I think that will play out over decades, of course, but it'll be interesting to see what this particular scenario is going to have, what impact it's going to have.
Well, it's a point you made earlier before we were on air, which is this is something that's played out over the last 30 years. It's now 70 years on, more than 70 years on since the end of the Second World War. And, the people, the military strategists, the Cold War strategists, the Cold War diplomacy that, was what maintained a balance during those years all the way to the 1990s. Those people are now, I guess, in their 90s or unfortunately no longer with us. So it's a new generation that probably doesn't have that background, doesn't have those understandings, now trying to grapple with this situation. So, look, it's a steep learning curve. It's a learning curve for every citizen in the world now to see this happen the way it's happening. I think a lot of us probably thought we'd never see something like this again, but we're seeing it. And we need to all think carefully about how we can prevent these actions from escalating and how we can prevent them from happening again in the future.